Hey, how's it going? I'm Jonathan Pruitt. Here's Jim Davis, and today on WebDM, we are going to explore the realm of the GISH.
It's not a dirty word.
It's not a dirty word.
It just sounds like one.
Just really sounds like one. So let's get to it. All right, Jim.
Yo.
First and foremost, what the hell is a GISH?
GISH.
And where does it come from?
If you're a curious D&D player and you start looking around on various forums and message boards and things, you might come across the term GISH, which is an unfortunate name to describe a fighter magic user. It originates from the Githyanki. Yeah. Githyanki are sort of a race of astral ex-Illithid slaves that hunt the astral sea using their silver swords, and they call their, in the Githyanki language, a fighter magic user is a GISH.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the line, this obscure piece of D&D lore came to describe every single arcane warrior that has ever existed, and so now it is just the word you use to describe a fighter mage. But it's specifically, it's not a divine caster. If you're going to be a GISH purist, which if you're going to be any kind of GISH, you might as well be a GISH purist.
Well, you don't do anything by half measures, okay? We don't do things by half measures here.
Then it is a fighter wizard or a fighter arcane magic user. Now, obviously, there are 1,000,001 ways you can expand on this concept, and I find in 5th edition in particular, given the fact that so many classes incorporate magic, not just spells, but magical abilities into their class features in a way that sort of like, you know, 4th edition had a reputation for sort of sameness. Everything became push 1 plus damage. You know, those kinds of powers, even though the flavor text on them was different.
Right.
I find that 5th edition has a similar sort of like every class has a magic option.
Right.
So your option for being a magic using warrior are many and varied in 5th edition. But if we're sticking with the classic definition, there would be some combination of a fighter or a warrior class that mixes magic with their fighting ability.
Right.
Obviously, the original version of this is the cleric. So in original D&D, you have the sort of the trifecta of classes: the fighting man, the magic user, and the cleric being the hybrid of them. But if you're talking about GISHs, we're ignoring divine magic. We're not talking about cleric, multi-classes. Paladin is sometimes used as GISH, particularly in 5th edition because of divine smite.
Yeah, that's a damage, baby. That's all you want, right?
You know, we're looking at a lot of different ways. So the basic building blocks of a GISH in 5th edition are going to be the fighter, specifically the Eldritch Knight.
Well, it's right there.
It's right there. The Paladin is another popular GISH class because of Divine Smite, using having access to more spell slots that you're fueling your attacks with by multi-classing, usually into Sorcerer, but also into Wizard, or sorry, not Wizard, but Warlock, and taking advantage of the synergy and Charisma. And you might do Barbarian, although Barbarian Rage is not compatible with spellcasting. There are some very specific combinations, which we sort of have talked about in a Barbarian show before. Yeah. But you know, spells that you cast before you rage. But for the most part, we're talking about fighters, to a lesser extent Paladins, for the warrior side of the GISH. Now, the caster side of the GISH, we've got wizards, we've got sorcerers, we've got warlocks, we've got bards. If we expand our definition a bit to incorporate something like the psychic warrior, then the immortal becomes a type of GISH, combining magical psionic abilities, which in 5th edition, psionic is magic, and vice versa. Lithids manipulate psionic energy using magic, for instance. Yeah. And then it's the same sort of way with the immortal. They have those powers.
Well, any chance to talk about Rilvian again I'm going to take it.
If you take a step back and you look at the classes as pure packages of mechanics, a class like the Immortal or the Paladin is really all you need. To me, the perfect GISH in 5th edition is the Paladin. Yeah. But it is a divine caster, so to me that rules out a classic GISH. It doesn't have an arcane component. But if I wanted to make my own, you know, built from the ground up, not a part of a subclass GISH, an arcane warrior, I would probably use Paladin as the base and go from there. Different spell selection, but using sort of the combination of fighting if I was going to build my own.
Right, but just basically because of the ability of spending slots to get more damage.
To get more damage, the type of the spells that they're casting, smites. So that's one way to think of GISH. But you know, looking at it from the classes as they exist in 5th edition, we have a spectrum that we're on. On one end, we have the casters, which would be Blade Singer Wizard and Blade Lock Warlock. They're Pact of the Blade Warlock. Those are the ones that are otherwise pure caster classes, or maybe even Valor Bard as well. Although Valor Bard, with its expanded, sort of like if you know, Blade Singer and Pact of the Blade Warlock are over here, and Eldritch Knight's over here, Valor Bard's like right here. Right. So you have those that are on the one end where they're mostly pure casters that mix a little bit of fighting so that they can stay competitive in melee combat. And on the other end, we have the Eldritch Knight, which has limited spell casting potential, limited schools, but has access to the full fighter class feature, all of the armor and abilities that they get, and mixing just a little bit of magic into it. Right. So somewhere along this line of mostly fighting with a little bit of magic, vice versa, mostly magic with a little bit of fighting, is where you will find your GISH. And for every player, there is somewhere some combination of multi-classing feats, something that gives you the type of combination of fighting prowess and magic use that you want, which is really why you play a GISH. Yeah. You play one because you like a little bit of both and you want to be able to engage in that style of play. In older editions of the game, it was limited pretty much just to elves. So if you wanted to be a fighter magic user, you had to play an elf and deal with those limitations. As the editions have gone on, we've expanded what it means to be an arcane warrior, I think for the better. But that is sort of the origins of where it comes from. Okay, so you said that, you know, it depends on your style of play. For you, Jim Davis, what's your GISH? So give me the dish on your GISH. For me, the archetypal GISH that I like started in 3rd edition. So I know I mentioned sometimes I played an elf fighter magic user, or in this case fighter wizard from 3rd edition, who started life as I want a character that the DM can't kill. And I had seen another player play a wizard to great effect and decided that some combination of the hit points and armor and fighting ability that the fighter gets, coupled with the spells for 3rd edition, I didn't like the arcane spell failure, so I didn't really end up using armor. And as I played that character, I realized that in 3rd edition at least, wizard so far outclassed fighter that it ended up being like a fighter 4, wizard 22. I think by the end of it, by the time I finished with that character. If I was remaking that character, and I have in 5th edition, I would go pure Blade Singer. I considered for a while a single level dip into fighter, just mostly for the proficiency and constitution saves, but also for some of the other fighting ability, the increased hit die. But ended up going pure Blade Singer with that. And for me, for people looking at the Blade Singer, don't be too seduced by the Blade Song. It's an awesome ability. It's going to give you a bonus to concentration saves. It's going to give you a bonus to AC. When it's active, you're going to have a really high AC, but you still got wizard hit points. And you've still you still should not consider yourself a frontline melee combatant. You are a full caster wizard who can survive a little bit in melee, who has a bit of a buff or a bit of a buffer in terms of what they can do. There are other versions of wizard. Abjurer obviously makes a good choice for arcane warrior due to their arcane ward, and necromancer also makes a good. There is a strong synergy between an Oathbreaker Paladin and a necromancer multi-class, using the Paladin aura to give your necromantic summons a damage boost on top of the fact that they're super charged up zombies because you're a necromancer. Takes a while to come online, but that's a combination that you can use. And it's a bit mad. Probably aren't going to have a great charisma, probably more strength int, a little bit of charisma there. So I don't know. I think that I like a caster more than I like a warrior. But looking at from a pure mechanical basis, I would also consider going something like Bladesinger 13, Eldritch Knight 7, in order to get war magic. You're casting some fairly high level spells, mostly still a caster, but you've got enough fighter that you can hang in there in melee, depending on what feats you've chosen for yourself. Definitely going to take Warcaster, maybe even Resilient Con, and just make sure that my concentration save is locked down.
Yeah.
No one's taking haste away from me.
No.
No one's taking greater invisibility away from me. Those are my spells.
Yeah.
Do not touch them. Because that's the biggest thing that a GISH has to worry about is the spell buffs that they have because of the way concentration works. If you want to mix it up in melee, Eldritch Knight is probably the base that you should consider, and then build from that Eldritch Knight base.
Yeah, see, for me, I would probably go Eldritch Knight 1, Bladesinger 2, and then maybe Eldritch Knight the rest of the way.
Yeah. And I think that's a perfectly viable way to play your character, and particularly if you're playing like an elf or a half elf or something. Now, for me, Bladesinger, if I'm playing in the Forgotten Realms, I'm gonna restrict blade singing to elves and half elves. But if I'm playing in a homebrew world or something different, then I might say Bladesinger is just a different version of wizard. Almost anyone can play one. But I think what you're talking about, mostly Eldritch Knight, just enough Bladesinger to get that boost from Blade Song. A couple of extra first level spells, ritual casting. Cantrips. But there's other things. You know, the Pact of the Blade Warlock is one of those where it's hard to get out from underneath the sheer mechanical power of the Hex plus Agonizing Blast plus Eldritch Blast combo that Warlocks get. But guess what? You get all of that, plus a weapon that you can summon, plus a magic weapon that you can just summon. Plus the Thirsting Blade and Life Drinker invocations. So I think that like what you're trading off in raw damage potential with the Blade Lock, you're gaining in versatility. You can mix it up in melee. You can mix it up in rage. You got the right invocations. You can do a lot of things. Maybe you've dipped into other classes to give you a boost. Maybe you started in Fighter with your Pact of the Blade Warlock, and then switched over. If you're a Fiend, you can make a really cool sort of strength-based Pact of the Blade Warlock that deals a lot of like, you hit me, you do, you're going to take some damage.
Yeah.
A Fey Pact of the Blade Warlock is going to look more like a mobile battlefield trickster, using their spells to kind of confuse the enemy and attack when the moment's right. We haven't even talked about the Arcane Trickster. No. Which is another type of GISH, given the fact that a rogue is a combat class.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of tools that help it excel and survive in combat, as well as magic that helps it. In this case, it helps it do well, depending on what spells you select. Mirror image, shield, those kinds of things.
Yeah, because Zelo, I mean,
he was as close to a arcane warrior as I've played in a while, and there for a while I was like, okay, I'll go. I'll be mostly Arcane Trickster, dip a couple levels into Bladesinger, and get the synergy I have with my high intelligence bonus. Ended up going with a different wizard subclass, but I think that there is a possibility of doing a Arcane Trickster Bladesinger that focuses more on evasion and sort of mobile striking, as opposed to the Eldritch Knights. Yeah, I'm here in full plate, and I've got shield, and I've got absorb element. And I'm going to hit you, and later on I'm also going to drop a fireball on you, and I'm going to action surge that. I think there's a lot of sick potential for the fact that an Eldritch Knight with their War Magic ability, using Sorcerer to twin cantrips, you're also getting your melee attack on top of that, twin Booming Blade plus your regular attack. If you've gone Sorcerer Eldritch Knight. That's just something you might want to consider if you're an Eldritch Knight and you like using your cantrips a couple levels into Sorcerer, or the rest of your levels into Sorcerer.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think there's a lot of different ways that you can look at it. Valor Bard is another one of those, and seemed like you were looking at Valor Bard maybe for the first time the other day and saw a combo that stood out to you that you really liked, that seemed to get your engines running.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
What was it? Doing a Valor Bard rogue?
I think mostly Valor Bard, but you were like using the magical secrets to pick up haste.
Oh, pick up haste,
and what you can do with that, and their war magic feature that lets them attack after casting a Bard spell.
Yeah, getting those extra attacks on top of it. Yeah, I mean, every time I've looked at Bard, I think I've always kind of leaned more lore, because I just saw the Valor Bard as just kind of like a second tier fighting type.
Right.
But they are a fighting caster, so I've never really thought about it that way.
Yeah, I think Valor Bard is one of those where I think that if there's a lot of versatility there. You can be an arcane archer type. I think Valor Bard makes the best arcane archer, which is not a type of Gish. It's an arcane archer, different archetype, but it's a close enough cousin that Valor Bard is going to be a good choice for that. You can pick up the ranger spells that let you get the Swift Quiver, Lightning Arrow, Conjure Barrage, things like that. Or you can be a Valor Bard focusing more on using magic secrets to pick up haste, the Paladin Smites. Now they're Bard spells for you. Using your innate bardic magic to give you things that boost your own combat.
Sorry, I was trying to hold that off for so long.
You can do a melee Valor Bard using Paladin Smites, elemental weapon, things like that to make you a viable melee combatant. You're darting in and out of combat. I'm curious to see what it's like for Valor Bards. I think that it's a different take on the archetype, and what I love about 5th edition is they give you so many ways to get to the same place.
Yeah.
And that's just I find a strength of the system. And anytime I'm feeling down about 5th edition, and it's not the kind of system that I want, or there are problems with it, I remember its strengths and why I like it for its strengths. And then I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this is the edition for me right now.
You come out swinging.
Yeah.
For the Gish. What are the blind spots? What are the problems?
So areas? I mean, Gish is. I mean, it's one of my favorite archetypes, but it is not without its drawbacks. It's got some serious action economy issues, and I think Valor Bard and Eldritch Knight help alleviate some of that with their ability to cast spells and attack at the same time. And it's one of the things that I like about playing a Paladin, and why I think Paladin base sort of reflavored to be arcane and a different spell selection would be good, because it uses bonus action spells to get a lot of it. But the straight up standard, I'm a Blade Singer, or I'm an Eldritch Knight before I get my class features, or a Bard before I get those class features. Usually your first action in any combat is setting up your buff, setting up the spell that you're going to use, which means that you're not getting to the action quick enough. Those pure warrior classes who aren't using spells to boost their combat efficiency can spend that first action in combat attacking. Yeah. Given my experience and our experience with D&D combat, with 5th edition combats lasting between 3 and 5 rounds, that is a big thing to give up. Having to set up a spell is one of those things. And in my experience playing the Blade Singer in this edition so far, it's a real, I found it to be somewhat of a dilemma. In that I go, okay, we're about to enter a fight. I could cast haste, and that's going to be an awesome combat buff for me. But I might also want to do something else with my action, or maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking more of a defensive spell like Blur or Mirror Image. Right. That casting one of those spells eats up that action, and it doesn't really give me a lot of options for that round. So action economy issues. Gish is the strength of it is its versatility, in that it can participate in all these different pillars of play meaningfully, and that it has some magic. But if you compare something like some sort of wizard fighter multi-class to a pure fighter or a pure wizard, in their respective spheres, they're not going to be as good. And so if you're concerned about playing an arcane warrior, and you're like, well, I've got a couple of other classes, there's other players in the party who are playing single class fighters and barbarians and paladins, and I don't want to be overshadowed by them, that's something to consider, that you might have to play second fiddle to one of them. Yeah. And again, we're talking minor degrees here. They're going to do 10-15% more damage. Maybe, yeah. When you're rolling, I do 18, I do 20. They're going to be rolling, I do 25, I do 28. Yeah. And that's fine. I mean, here's the thing. What else did you do in that combat? Did you also cast a thing that kept you from being hit? Well, they got hit 3 times. They got hit 3 times. So, I mean, you have other things that you're strong at, and that's fine. Right. And to me, the higher level you intend on playing a campaign, the more vital that magic becomes. Yes. This is Dungeons and Dragons, and for whatever reason, for good or bad, high-level Dungeons and Dragons revolves around the spells that you can cast. In 5th edition, it means having a party concentration slot allotment. Right. And if you are a fighter who can cast spells, there's now another concentration slot in the party. Chances are you've got a great constitution or a concentration save that'll help with that. And being able to cast your own fly, your own invisibility, your own battlefield control spells. without having to rely on the wizard, without having to rely on other casters, I find is an asset.
You're bringing more guns to the party.
Bringing more guns to the party. And, there's a lot of different combinations of GISHs that will shore up weaknesses. Maybe you rely, maybe you're a Paladin sorcerer. And you're using, just a little bit of Paladin, mostly Dragon Sorcerer. In my mind, I really want to play like a gold Dragonborn Devotion Paladin Gold Dragon Sorcerer, and just being like, I'm a dragon. Like, that's who I am. Something like that, or a Paladin Favored Soul. But then again, that's encroaching a bit more into Divine, and now we're out of the Arcane Warrior territory. So I don't know. There's, like I said, there's a lot of ways to skin the cat of Arcane Warrior in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, and I'm sure that there will be more and many varied ways to do it as more subclasses come out and more base classes come out. We're going to get plenty of different ways to play the Arcane Warrior. But it's one of my favorite archetypes, and I'm glad that there are so many ways to approach it as opposed to just a fighter mage, like it's been in previous editions.
Gish.
Gish, gash, we're here for the bash.
Gish, gash, I was hacking and slash. All night on Friday night. Rub-a-dub, I'm gonna cast on a blur.
There you go.
Hang on a second.
Keep it going, it's a good stinger.
We're on a Weird Al song.
Yeah, working on a Weird Al song, One
Prince
Gish,
of Spice.
1 Gish, 2 Gish, dead Gish. Who wants to play a Gish?
Who's a Gish? What the hell is a Gish?
Kind of fun. I like it.
It's just it sounds like a dirty word.
It does.
Is the problem with Gish is just like
just grab him by the Gish.
Grab him by the Gish. Ugh. And the first time I saw it, I was like, no. It was like way back in like 2000 something, like 2004 or something.
We need to grow up here, kids.
And I was on the Wizards of the Coast forums, and I just kept seeing Gish, and I was like, why are all these people making Githyanki Fighter-Mages? Like, when did that become a thing? And it would just, somebody was just like, became the generic term. It really got under my skin.
Oh.
I was quite upset about it, I recall. So many Githyanki.